My job as a water security analyst is to track threats to the world's most vital resource. And right now, we are looking at a huge vulnerability in the Persian Gulf that, frankly, is being almost completely overlooked. This is a threat where the cost isn't just about money, it's about survival. Let's break it down. I want you to just let that sink in for a second. This one sentence completely reframes how we should be thinking about conflict in the Persian Gulf. You see, the biggest threat here isn't necessarily the explosions or the blockades themselves. No, it's the ripple effect. It's what happens when the water gets turned off. So how is that even possible? How can a conflict at sea lead to mass casualties from thirst on land? Well, the answer lies in a fundamental weakness, one that's kind of hidden in plain sight. It's a dependency so total that if it fails, entire societies could collapse. To really get this, you have to first wrap your head around a simple, stark fact. The Arabian Peninsula has almost zero natural freshwater. We're talking no major rivers, no vast lakes. The massive modern cities and the millions of people living there, they exist for one reason and one reason only: technology. And this chart really just puts that technological dependence in perspective. Look at this. For countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar, over 90% of all their freshwater comes from desalination. They literally survive by taking seawater from the Persian Gulf and turning it into the water that runs everything. Their entire modern way of life hangs on this process. And that exact process is now under direct, immediate threat. And I want to be clear, this isn't some theoretical what-if scenario. Right now, as we speak, the Persian Gulf is being systematically poisoned with oil from multiple spills coming from multiple sources all at the same time. Just look at how fast this is escalating. On March 4th, a tanker gets hit near Kuwait. Okay. Then, just a week later, another one is set on fire off the coast of Iraq. Before the month is even over, a massive carrier is struck near Dubai. Each one of these incidents creates another oil spill, another toxic layer spreading through the Gulf. And you know, those three big incidents? That's just what's making the news. The reality is much worse. There's also a 25-kilometer slick leaking from a fuel depot in Iran, at least 7 abandoned vessels that are almost certainly leaking, plus damaged oil platforms, and all the toxic bunker fuel from every ship that goes down. The whole Gulf is becoming a toxic soup. Okay, and this is where the region's unique geography turns a really serious problem into an absolute catastrophe. The Persian Gulf isn't the open ocean. You have to think of it more like a giant, shallow, enclosed bathtub. And that has terrifying consequences for anything nasty that gets dumped into it. So let's look at the tech itself. Desalination mostly uses a process called reverse osmosis. The simple version is you're pushing seawater through an incredibly fine filter, a membrane, to pull the salt out. But these high-tech membranes have an Achilles heel: hydrocarbons, oil. Even tiny trace amounts of oil will foul them up, clog them, and completely destroy them. And this number right here, this illustrates the trap. Because the Gulf is basically a closed-off bathtub with only one tiny little drain, the Strait of Hormuz, it takes 3 to 5 years for its water to fully cycle out into the ocean. So all that oil, it's not washing away. It's just trapped. It's circulating, it's concentrating, and it's washing right up to the intake pipes of those critical desalination plants. You know, we've actually seen a version of this before. During the 1991 Gulf War, one huge spill shut down Saudi desalination plants. But what's happening today is so much worse. Back then, it was one source. Now, we've got dozens. And back then, they could get spare parts and new membranes. Today, the very conflict that's causing the spills is also blocking the shipping lanes needed to bring in the equipment to fix them. So now, let's add one more critical factor to this nightmare scenario: the calendar. All of this contamination is spreading just as the region is heading into the brutal heat of summer, when having enough water isn't about comfort, it's about life and death. We're talking about routine temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius. That's 122 degrees Fahrenheit. In that kind of heat, a steady supply of water is the only thing standing between a functioning city and a mass casualty event. It's that simple. And here is the ticking clock. Most of these major Gulf cities only have between 24 and 72 hours of drinkable water stored in their systems. That's it. So if the desalination plants go offline, the taps start running dry in about 2 or 3 days. After that, what's the plan? Well, the backup plan would have to be an airlift, but let's just run the numbers on that. To supply 50 million people, you need somewhere around 15 to 25 million tons of water every single day.
A C-17 cargo plane, a real workhorse, can carry about 77 tons. You do the math. You need around 200,000 flights a day. The entire US Air Force only has 223 of these planes. It's not just hard, it's logistically impossible. There is no plan B.
So, when the water stops, everything else stops. The failure of the water system doesn't happen in a neat little box. It triggers a catastrophic, cascading failure of every other piece of critical infrastructure you can think of. This is what we call the power water death spiral. First, the desalination plants fail because of the oil. But guess what? A lot of power plants use that same seawater for cooling. So when they start sucking in oily water, they have to shut down too. That leads to massive blackouts, which then takes out the pumps for any remaining water and sanitation systems. You see a loop? Water failure causes power failure, which causes more water failure. And the dominoes just keep on falling. Hospitals can't do sterile surgeries anymore. The region's small but vital agriculture, dairy, poultry farms, it all collapses. Industry grinds to a total halt. This isn't just a water crisis, it's a full-spectrum societal collapse, all kicked off by a single point of failure. And this right here is the final crucial thing to get. The world is watching oil prices, right? And sure, those will probably bounce back the moment the Strait of Hormuz reopens. But the water won't. Because of that bathtub problem, it will take 3 to 5 years for the Gulf's water quality to get back to normal. The environmental and human disaster will last years longer than the economic headlines. You know, the ultimate victims in this chain of failure, it's not soldiers or sailors. It's 50 million civilians in cities like Dubai, Doha, and Kuwait City. We've just laid out how a conflict over oil can lead directly to a catastrophic failure of water. So the question we have to end with is this. With the stakes this high, does the world even know this is possible?